Zelda. Now, if you know me, I am far more of a Mario fan in terms of Nintendo than, well, Zelda. But especially as of the last year or so, I've been dipping my toes in Zelda games a little bit, experiencing a little bit of the Zelda side of Nintendo. And, let me tell you, yeah, some of them are alright. I've played some Zelda games. I had a little bit of a playthrough of Ocarina of Time and didn't really enjoy it that much. Maybe I'll make a video on that and get a bunch of people to hate on it and ignore the valid criticisms I make of the game. However, today I'm not talking about a beloved childhood game. Instead, I'm talking about a not as beloved childhood game, but a really, really underrated one. Wind Waker. The Legend of Zelda the Windwaker. This game. My god, this game. So, I've, in terms of games, spoken about pretty much exclusively just Mario Kart on this channel. Anything else has generally been some other random offshoot topic or a console. But, Wind Waker. The Legend of Zelda the Windwaker is honestly in my top 5 favorite games. I absolutely adore this game. I played it back at the beginning of 2024 and played through most of it. Then about the midway point of 2024, I picked it up again and started playing through it again on a fresh save and actually beat it that time. And I can tell you it was an amazing experience and you should play it for yourself. So Wind Waker is a Zelda game, so you go through your dungeons and all, and the basic premise and story is that you're Link and you're living on an island surrounded by a big ocean. You live in your island life, it's your birthday, and then your sister gets kidnapped by a giant bird creature. You, of course, as any other puzzle adventure game, go on an adventure to save her and to restore peace and balance to the land of, I want to say Hyrule, but at the same time Hyrule is like flooded, so the land of whatever the ocean in Wind Waker is called. Either way, you have to restore, peace and balance to that. But that's not the main reason I like the game. Now, don't get me wrong, the story's nice, it's pretty simple, but it's charming. But the main reasons I like the game come down to, like, 2 or 3 things. Firstly, let's just talk about the music of Wind Waker. Wind Waker's music. By God, is it good. I mean, Dragon Roost Island alone is absolutely incredible, and is also what's playing right now. And all the other pieces in this game are just amazing. From the music that plays in the background when you're sailing across the ocean, to Outset Island's music, to even all the music in all the different dungeons, this game perfects its music. Its boss music as well is absolutely incredible. Ganon's music in this game is really, really good. That one weird flying sand boss, it's got an incredibly, incredibly catchy theme. The music in this game is just really, really amazing. I cannot praise it anymore. However, the music, realistically, is a relatively small part of the game compared to, well, the main part, which is obviously the gameplay itself. I really like it. Wind Waker, don't get me wrong here, isn't like the most difficult of games. We're not looking at like a Dark Souls or something here. It's a relatively tame, simple, relatively easy game to play. It's not too challenging to beat. The game itself takes around 6 hours to play through, and the basic gameplay is going to dungeons, solving puzzles, fighting enemies, beating bosses, and then upgrading and getting new cool stuff occasionally whenever you beat a dungeon. And, that's all fine and all, but one thing I want to point out here quickly is, Wind Waker's combat. Now, I know I said I was done with the music, however, I just want to note, Wind Waker's combat, it's tied in to the music of the game. Like, whenever you encounter an enemy, there's a theme that will play for when you're fighting that enemy. And that theme dynamically changes as to if you hit the enemy or not successfully. Like, you can hit the enemy over and over again, and it'll, like, change how the theme sounds in-game. It's really cool. I've not actually seen any other game do this, to be honest, and honestly, I wish more of them did. The combat itself is also just generally pretty fun. Though Zelda games generally, you know, they're not the most combat-intensive games, but, you know, the combat, it's decently fun, it's decently good, you know. I like it. It's alright. One thing I cannot praise the game enough about, though, are its puzzles. This game strikes the perfect balance between easy enough that you can actually figure out the solution, but difficult enough that it actually feels like you've figured out the solution and not like you've, you know, just gotten it instantly and it's like not a challenge at all. The dungeons are perfectly challenging. All of them. They have just enough challenge to keep you interested, but are easy enough that solutions are still possible for the average person to be able to figure out on their own. This is a big criticism I have against something like Ocarina of Time as well. A lot of its dungeons are just not very clear about where you're supposed to go or what you're supposed to do, especially and specifically the earlier ones. However, Wind Waker gets this pretty much perfectly, to be honest, and none of its dungeons really feel like they're overly difficult nor overly easy. They're at like a perfect difficulty level. Now, one thing I will mention is Wind Waker's gameplay is kind of split up into two parts. You've got the first half of Wind Waker, and then you've got the second half of Wind Waker, and let me tell you here, the first half is the better one. So, why is the first half the better one, you may be asking? Well, the first half of Wind Waker is fine, it's really good, it's really fun to play through. It all feels like it's flowing fine, the story flows really nicely from one segment to the next to the next. However, in the second half of the game, yeah, you can tell the developers didn't get as much time or leniency with the second half, and you can tell it's rushed. The second half has you in a constant state as to how I've described to friends before when I've described playing Wind Waker as feeling like the game was supposed to end 10 minutes ago, and that feeling kind of just never goes away until it actually does end, which feels like it should have ended by that point like 3 years ago. The story at the end doesn't really tie in, it's really choppy, it feels really poorly put together, and there's a really annoying part of the end called the Triforce Hunt. What's the Triforce Hunt? Well, basically, the Triforce, which is the Zelda icon thing, is scattered across the entire Wind Waker map, and you have to find 8 pieces of the Triforce in order to be able to beat the final boss. However, the problem with this is finding the 8 pieces is annoying, stupidly tedious. Like, I have always hated trying to find these 8 pieces. To be able to find all 8 pieces, you have to find first 8 maps, which will lead you to the locations of the 8 pieces, then beat a couple puzzles with some of them, and then do a lot of really, really annoying tasks to be able to get each one of them, and each one of them takes a while to get. It's just a really annoying part of the game, and it breaks up the really nice, relatively quick and snappy flow the first half of the game has. And that's really the only criticism I have. The second half of the game, it does just kind of chug along really, really slowly, and yeah, it does get pretty annoying at times. However, the Triforce Hunt isn't the most annoying thing ever, and I will admit it's not fun, but it's, you know, I've played worse things. But, yeah. So, there's one last thing that I like to cover before, you know, ending the video, and that is, one of the most obvious things about Wind Waker that distinguishes it from all other Zelda games. And that's its art style. Wind Waker went for a cel-shaded, cartoony art style, and honestly, I absolutely love it. Compared to all other Zelda games, I think Wind Waker honestly looks the nicest, and despite the fact a lot of the models do look kinda goofy. I think it's more endearing than weird, to be honest. And don't get me wrong, they are strange, but they are definitely also kind of endearing to look at, and they are interesting. I think Wind Waker's art style is really nice, and honestly, compared to most other Zelda games which go for a half cartoon, half realistic style, yeah, Wind Waker, I think it definitely was going in the right direction with the more animated style of it. I mean, yeah, I think it just looks really nice, and it's a nice difference compared to, well, most other 3D Zelda games. But yeah, that's pretty much the video. So, final verdict. Wind Waker is really underrated, and more people should play it. Yeah, that's it.